thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. I hope you have a delicious plate in front of you to enjoy while you hear us and hear Cameron mainly. Welcome to the webinar. It's hosted by Level 3 with Cameron from R1 Training. They are one of our startup members at Level 3. And for some of you who may not know what Level 3 is, we are an ecosystem where we bring together startups, corporates, and ecosystem partners to come together and drive innovation across the board. We're all about building communities. So please keep talking to us. Tell us what you're going through right now, and we'll try to address that. We have over 60 startups in our ecosystem at the moment, 8 corporate partners, and we work very closely to them. So yeah, we're always connecting people. I'm very excited about today's session because I've known Cameron for over a year now, and every time I've spoken to him, he's been working with Unilever teams, and I've always had very interesting conversations with him on around leadership and how different times and crisis define leaderships. And I think at this point of time, it is very, very crucial on how our leaders react in work with teams. So it's not about building the teams, it's also about keeping the teams motivated in how do you adapt in different situations. Everybody has different, work-life balance and working from home conditions. So it's very, very apt for the time we are in. So I won't go too much in detail. I'm not the expert. I'm more here to listen to Cameron. So I'll pass this on to Cameron. But before I do that, very quick housekeeping stuff. I have Azra, who's managing this, my wonderful colleague, who's the champion in this. So she'll be looking at all your chats and Q&As and, supporting on the polls today. So if you have any issues, please just write to us in the chat and we'd like to help you. Secondly, please ask as many questions as you like. We love questions. We can stop in between and, answer the questions. So please keep them coming in. You can also upvote the questions. So feel free to do that rather than if it's the same questions being asked before. And after this, if you would like to connect to Level 3, please just drop us an email. You will see the details at the end of it, or just give us a shout out over here, and I'll be happy to jump on a private chat with you. So have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you, Cameron, once again. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Upna. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Cameron, and I'll be giving today's talk. So today's talk is about leadership, what it means in the Agile context. Okay, so just a little thing. I have in front of me, I have polls, I have Q&A, and I have chat. Just to make it interactive, everyone can see chat. Can everyone just say hello and chat, or maybe something where they're calling from, if they're in Singapore or outside Singapore, or the company they represent? Just something nice and chat. It goes to me and it goes to everyone else. At the same time, if there's any questions you have, please put them into the Q&A. So in the Q&A, and if this is similar to other presentation webinar tools, you'll be able to upvote other people's questions. So if you have a question and you see someone else has a question and you like it, you can upvote that question. And at the end, we have 15 minutes dedicated just to Q&A. And to make it interactive, we have a number of polls we're going to run throughout as well, just to get feedback from people on the subject. Okay, so let's get started. So anyone say anything in chat? Yeah, hello everyone. hello. Okay, great. So that's the chat. So feel free to chat, put in whatever you want. I'll see it from time to time. But if you do have a question, put it in the Q&A. Okay, we'll get started. So just a little bit about this series. There's going to be 3 of them. They're all focused on different aspects of leadership style for Agile organizations. Now, when I talk about Agile, I can be talking about modern ways of working, new ways of working.
I didn't catch that.
Okay. Oh, there goes my Alexa or Siri. Okay, so just a little bit about me. So I'm what's called an Agile coach. So what's an Agile coach? I don't work on the product, I don't work on the service, I work on how we work together. So we look at innovating the work process. And there's some of the guys I've worked with, some of the big name brands people know, but I work with a lot of startups as well. I do now, and I have in the past helping them. I'm also an authorized instructor for IC Agile on their courses. A lot of time, if I'm not coaching or mentoring, you can be giving a learning course. Okay. So our agenda for today, we're going to talk, remember, we only have 45 minutes, so we're going to go over some of the high level areas about leadership and agility. So in this session today, we're going to be talking about the importance of culture. Okay, culture first. We're going to talk about the age of complexity. Why do organizations believe in agile or business agility? Why is there a lot of emphasis on it at the moment? We'll talk about leadership knowledge in the knowledge economy. Why the actual structure of economies are changing, moving away from primary or secondary types to knowledge-based economies. Much like Singapore. Leadership as a people enabler. So you might have heard the term before of servant leader. So we'll look a little bit about that. Where does leadership fit in? And how it's different from traditional ways of managing people or people managers. And we talk about leaders, the difference between managers and leaders. Then we'll talk about some personal qualities. And then there's one or two little takeaways. I'm hoping we get through to them before we stop for the Q&A. Now, in the other sessions that are going to follow up next Wednesday and the following Wednesday, we've got one session just on emotional intelligence. So we call that the agility in relationships. And then we're going to look at the third one that's on in 3 weeks' time is Agile Leadership Playbook. Some techniques, practices, approaches. If you're familiar with Scrum, some of those things we'll go into, the actual doing of Agile. But today is very much about the being agile. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this character. I don't know if some of you know it, one of the a unicorn, I guess, a unicorn startup, Gojek, and he's the CTO of Gojek, AJ Gore. I strangely enough met him in a park walking along. How we just started a conversation. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who we are, but our kids started playing together, and then we had a quick conversation. And I was lucky enough to follow up, and I have heard him speak at a few events. Even at a technical conference, he talks primarily about culture. He's culture first. He says, get the culture right, and your teams will then solve problems. So what he talks about is the primary focus of a leader is to nurture an engineering culture. It's a can-do and a motivated attitude amongst our teams. Get the culture right, and you will solve complex problems. Okay, I'm just going to start a little poll to get people. If you can just answer this, so it's a little bit about your backgrounds. If you're currently working on an agile team, maybe you're a leader who's looking to maybe adopt it or take in some of the values. Maybe you're a product owner, or maybe you're an actual Scrum Master. So we just give 20 seconds on that, and I'll come back to it. Okay, so I like to use this. I like to use this metaphor here of the gardener, and the gardener is someone who is, often traditional leadership focuses on people management. So all the focus is on the flower in this case. People. We focus on managing people. We don't focus on managing the whole system. So the system is, so if we look at the one on the right, it's more of the leader who is taking care of the environment of the flower. Different flowers like different soil types. Some like more sunshine, some like more water, some like less. So the idea of get the environment right and the flowers will grow. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. And yeah, we've got the background. We've got people who are working on agile teams. We have no product owners. We have some people who are leading, implementing, or thinking of adopting agile ideas. And okay, thank you. Okay. So, what's driving the need? What's behind all this move to agile? So it's a reassessment of how we deliver value. So the globalization of ideas, never before have ideas spread so quick. With printing, it took hundreds of years for the concept and the technology of printing to get around the world. Nowadays, you can launch a product and it can go global quick. The ideas can spread around Twitter pretty quick. The industrialization of disruption. 10 years ago, if you looked at the ecosystems, there was no such thing as the likes of level 3 accelerators. There wasn't many people involved in venture capital or angel investment. Nowadays, it's an industrial complex, so it's never been a better time to be a startup. And all those startups are aiming at disruption. So there is more and more disruption going on. So we can't we being innovative is a critical success factor. Innovation. Society is changing. Consumers are evolving. Where the society is getting used to the velocity of change. The speed of change is picking up, and consumers are more receptive to it. So it's easy to adopt new things like the television. The change in the television industry has gone a lot quicker than I ever thought it would. The people moving to the likes of Netflix, YouTube, traditional television stations who relied on all that advertising being absolutely disrupted. So ecosystems of value and platforms as a service. We talk about, rather than being we own the whole relationship with the customer, that we fit in and we're part of an ecosystem that brings an overall result to a company. So that changes. It's a mindset change. Sustainability and global big problems. So the idea of, it's not a problem for one country, it's a problem for every country. It's a consumer in one country probably has the same problems as a consumer in another country. So the idea of unifying big problems and sustainability. Okay, the court of public opinion in the internet world is a double-edged sword. Okay, so go past that. So the evolution of the knowledge economy. So what's changing? So traditionally, people worked in fields, in mines, primary industry. It was very much, if you look at the early stages of industrialization, people were they were called a resource. So they were the exact same as capital or any of the inputs you needed to build something. So people were managed. If you think of Taylorism, it was very much time and motion studies. How can we be more efficient? We moved up to hands, more in factories, but nowadays it's more about minds. So you find very small teams causing massive disruption. So it's not about scale anymore. In fact, scale can hold you back. You look at the likes of GE; they're too big. It's hard to make change. So small teams, whether they're teams within a big organization or small teams working on their own, can innovate, can cause disruption. So the difference between here is people are much more educated. People don't need as much management. In fact, you can't pay people more to be more innovative. You have to create the environment, and you have to create the capabilities within them and within their teams that helps with innovation. So minds over scale, agility as a critical success factor. So the world, this COVID-19 black swan came out of nowhere, and some organizations are like rabbits caught in the headlight. Some organizations are adapting, and it's really interesting what you're seeing out there now. Which organizations are adapting, which ones are coming out with some sort of new normal, which ones are progressing, and which ones are being held back. So that is building agility into your organization, that you're able to, as an organization, change, that you can take road bumps on the road. So organizations, the ones that have previously invested in agility or business agility, are the ones that are able to adapt or are better positioned to adapt. Okay. The rhythm of innovation. So we talk about innovation. If you look at organizations like Apple, continuously innovating, they're a big organization, so they have a rhythm of innovation. So each September they launch a load of new products, and straight away they're building for the following September. So they have this rhythm of innovation as a process. We talk about the ability to learn. It's valued. So we want people to be curious. We want people to try things. We want people to take calculated risks. And I'll talk a little later on about the idea of risk taking and the idea of building in learning. Ability to experiment, well, follows on in the same vein. So it's how can we experiment? What is a safe experiment? How do we encourage people? If we are an organization that frowns upon any risk, people won't experiment. This is a big conversation I have with or with HR departments and organizations. They want innovation, but they pay people to be conservative. Leadership inspires knowledge workers differently than before. So this is a really interesting area, and we go into a bit more in the webinars later in the month. But the idea of intrinsic motivators. If we take money out as a motivator, it's an extrinsic motivator. If people are paid well and paid fairly, how do we motivate them? Okay, intrinsic motivators. Okay, and I've got a poll in a few minutes about intrinsic motivators. Okay, so the change in organizations, the one on the left is the traditional organization as a machine, the idea of a top-down hierarchy. So you can see that we have a few individuals, the elite up the top. We have a bureaucracy in the middle who enforce the lower echelons, let's say, in their silos to produce things. That's traditional. Think of Ford manufacturing. Think of the old Taylorism. That's the traditional organizational chart. But nowadays, organizations are looking more and more like this. And this big change happened somewhere in the early 2000s, when the S&P 500 began, the companies at the top of the S&P started looking more like this egg-shaped one on the right and less on the one on the left. The ones that were adding tremendous values were the ones who were more shaped like this. These are the Googles, the Facebooks, and all the others that are more team-based. So what do we have? Those little dots, and they're cross-functional teams, small teams. So we call them tightly coupled but loosely aligned teams. So where does leadership fit in this new organization? Traditionally, it sits up the top on the triangle, but in the new organization, the role is more of a coordinator and as a service to the teams. If we want these teams to be more independent, we want them to react quicker, we want them to focus on value, they have to be given a certain level of autonomy. So the whole definition of leadership moves away from micromanagement and more to be an enabler of people and teams. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A or pop them in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to start another poll here. This one is the one on what do you think Agile is? So if you can just have a quick read through that, because the word Agile it's actually, well, I'll let you read through it and see what you think. I'll take a cup of coffee. Okay, that's great. Yeah, lots of people jumping into the questions. So the first one is, and this will fit into where we're moving, because organizations as an organism is more in line with an agile organization. So what do you think Agile is? A methodology for tech teams to work on a software project? Good. Lots of people have said 0 to that. That is good. Yeah, there's certainly frameworks and things like Scrum or XP and originally the whole ideas came out of teams solving typically software problems. A framework to solve complex problems in a dynamic world. Yeah, some people said that. Yeah. And then the ability of a business system to rapidly respond to change by adapting its initial stable configuration. Yeah, most people said that. And a manifesto. Of course, there is the Agile manifesto, but that's just high-level ideas. So I'm glad most people said B or C. There is no right answer to this. In fact, there is a conversation in the Agile community about that the word Agile is too generic. It's too broad. But all of these apply to Agile, but B and C are the most right ones. So well done to everyone who answered that. So back to our slides. So we have the intact cross-functional, we have a cross-functional stable team. So traditionally, when I worked on projects, I would be in a consultancy, and then I was seconded to a project team, a new project team, and I would work with them for 6 months or a year. And then the project would end and I would leave, and then I would join a brand new project team. In the world of Agile, we switch that around and the team stays the same and the work comes to the team. So everything is about the team. Now, one of the reasons that is that the first few months when I joined a new team, we were building up trust, we were building up knowledge of each other's capabilities. It was a bit, and if we're looking from a lean perspective, that's a bit of a waste. So each time I had to change, there was a cost in switching. And all the trust that was built up on the old team is lost. So nowadays, organizations look less like the one on the left with silos, and they look more like the ones on the right. So what I'm getting at with this is that the concept of teams as an enabler, or teams as the core of agile organizations, is the most important concept. And as leaders, it's been able to nurture teams, and we'll talk about what are the characteristics of a good team, and these all build into what an agile leader should be looking at when they're building their teams. Okay, and we talk about maximizing flow and minimizing dependencies. Okay, so maximizing the flow. So as a servant leader, remember, as a leader, it's more the word leadership than leader. So leadership in a traditional organization, there was a manager and he or she was the leader. In an agile organization, an agile team, there is many people who provide leadership services to the team, and it's up to those leaders to maximize flow. By maximize flow, it means taking out the blockers, so anything that hinders the team from delivering value. Okay, so they often say that is the role of a scrum master, is to look for where the flow of value is being disrupted, and to minimize dependencies. And when I talk about dependencies, is anytime the team has to go outside the team to get something done, because there is a risk that if we rely on someone else or another team, that there is a possibility for some sort of failure, and that will slow us down. Okay. Also, if we want to build accountability into the team, we want the team to take ownership. If they feel that they have everything in their power to deliver the value, they're more likely to sign up to it. If they feel there's something outside their control, or there's a risk that someone else will not perform, not do the thing they said they would do, then the team will not take ownership from it. Okay, so the team. So what kind of team are we trying to develop? We are trying to nurture leadership. We took on the two axes here. So we have on the left, we have need each other. So the team needs each other, yes or no. And on the bottom, we have a common goal. So we talk about leaders on an agile team bringing clarity of purpose to the team. So people know what their role is and how their role influences the overall value that's delivered. Now, I've worked on teams in the top left. See the temporary alliance? I've worked on lots of teams way back in the day where we're a temporary alliance of contractors, internal resources. We were working on a project. It was a temporary alliance. I didn't know them. They didn't know me. There was very little trust in there, and we broke up at the end of the project. We moved away. So there wasn't much of a common goal, except complete the project. But we weren't tied in at a deeper level. We all had different managers we were reporting to. We all had different perspective on what the value was. Down the bottom is just co-workers, and it's a little bit of chaos. On the left, pseudo team, where there is a common goal, but they don't need each other. That's in a project where one or two people control the project. They take it onto themselves. They don't share much of the work. They've got their own agenda. Okay. And then you've got the team up the top right, and that's the happy, trusting team that rely on each other, that believe in each other, that there's a circle of trust, psychological safety, all of those things. So the leadership as a service to the team is trying to create that team in the top right. Okay, great. We've got some questions coming in, which I will answer in a few minutes, and then in the chat. Okay, great. Okay. Now, as a leader, I can name. So if we're a leader and we're trying to influence our team, okay, and remember, leader mightn't be just one person, it might be several people on the team. We want to bring in creativity, and we want to bring in agility to adapt to whatever situation, agility to focus on value, agility to think laterally, to look across different ways about how we deliver value, or how we're going to deliver value. So the ability to make, wouldn't we all like this in our team? Our ability to make better decisions, ability to take more effective action, and we can take action, but is it effective action? Okay, and all this, of course, in the background of this VUCA world, this complexity, this uncertainty, and rapid change. Now, if we're trying to bring agility into our team, we talk about, yes, you can send people on courses, you can adopt a framework, you can bring in a Scrum Master, you can train someone as a Scrum Master, but really change starts in the very center with people. Okay, with people and their behaviors, their demonstrated behaviors, they all add up together to what's called the culture. Okay, often what happens, and I see this a lot in the engagement I go in with, we start with the process. So we try to ask people, okay, let's do a daily stand-up. Let's use a Kanban board, and we start off with the process, but we don't change anything about the culture, about people's mindsets, about building trust into a team. And it fails. People go, Agile doesn't work for us, because the mindset is that it is a process. So I try to get us across that we start with individuals, we start with people, we start with behaviors, particularly leaders, because leaders and the value and the behaviors they demonstrate, the rest of the team pick up on. Okay. Now, often organizations have values, and I always go and ask people, can you write up the values that I read in the waiting room on the way in here? And no one knows them. They're written by the marketing department, very much external, and people inside don't believe them. But we try to look for we try to say, well, let's take some of those values and let's try and demonstrate them as a team. So we start in the center with changing the mindset, developing and tweaking the culture to get it right. And then what happens is, structure, how your teams are made up, and process, how you do your work, is much easier once we start with culture in the middle. So if you are a leader, if you're bringing in, I would start in the middle. Look up about Agile culture, look about that, but it's really behaviors make up value. So value, recognize your values, live those values in the team, and then it's much easier to bring in the Agile structures and the Agile process. Okay. How are we doing time? Okay, so starting with our belief as a leader, what do this is McGregor's X and Y theory. I don't know if people have heard McGregor's X and Y theory. He's a guy who writes about HR issues. But McGregor said there's two theories of people, X and Y. So as a leader yourself, what are you demonstrating? What behaviors are you demonstrating? And what's your mindset? Are you someone who thinks that people are inherently lazy, that people need to be forced to work, that people only come to work to get paid, that people aren't engaged? Or do you believe that people need to work, theory Y, that people like to work, that people are capable of great things? Now, okay. So if we go a bit deeper into theory X and Y, so in X, we think people dislike and avoid work if allowed. That's their default attitude. People were only creative in ways of getting around work or getting paid for work that they don't do. Direction, people need to be forced or bribed to work. So people only come to work through fear and greed. Okay. Fear that a boss will give out to them, and greed that they need money to live their lifestyle. Responsibility is people prefer direction over responsibility, that people need a strong leader. And by strong leader, I mean authoritative leader. You can be a strong leader, but be quite supportive to people as well. Motivation, people are money and fear is the primary motivators. And then creativity, people mainly lack creativity except to avoid work. And that it's only exceptional people who have creativity. And focus around those people. However, in theory, why McGregor talks about people need to work and want to take an interest in it. That beyond the money. So money, yeah, if we get paid fair, but we still need to work. Under right conditions, they even enjoy work. If you won the lottery, would you stay at home all day? Maybe not. You often hear the story of the lottery winners who go back to work in the post office because they miss the camaraderie, they miss the friends, they like being a valuable member of the community. In direction, people will will self-direct themselves towards a goal that they accept. People, if whatever the organization is doing that is aligned with someone's personal values, that they feel they're doing the world some good, that they will be self-motivated to get to achieve that. GoJack are excellent at getting this concept across, this idea that they're solving real world problems. Responsibility, people will seek and accept responsibility under the right conditions. And then motivation, people can be motivated by desire and realize their own potential. Okay. So is my job giving me a growth opportunity? Am I learning from my job? Do I feel I am challenged, or do I like to just run around like the hamster on the hamster wheel? Lots of people are motivated as long as they're learning. Okay. And as soon as a job gets boring, they leave. Creativity and ingenuity are so creativity is widely distributed and it's grossly underused. Okay, theory X and Y. Now, I should have a poll to ask if people are X and Y, but I didn't do one earlier on. Okay, so what I might do is I'm going to start, I'm going to do a poll here on what motivates you. Okay, so if everyone can have, look at that one. What motivates you? So questions are alignment of organizational purpose with my personal values. Lots of people work for NGOs. They probably could get paid more if they worked in private industry, but they like working for the NGO because it is aligned with their personal values. Okay. Well, that could be a private organization as well. Opportunity to learn and grow. I am taking on this job because it's teaching me a lot. I'm learning a lot. I like it. I'm willing to take a less salary because I'm getting all this experience. Ability to pick one's own work. Okay, self-explanatory. And I'm motivated by my teammates. Do I work with a strong team where I feel I'm learning off my team? Am I motivated by not letting them down? It's like it's like going to the gym on your own versus playing with a five-a-side football team. If it's only yourself you're letting down, it's easy not to go to the gym. But if you're part of a team and you're the goalkeeper and no one else can do it, and you don't show up, you've ruined it for everyone else. So I am motivated for my team. Okay, great. So that is good feedback. We have, yeah, that's really good. So the opportunity to learn and grow is strong. Okay, so as a leader, we need to recognize this, that we need to keep people. We need to give people stretch goals that stretches them in a good way, in that they're learning. Okay. Okay. So this moves on to developing your leadership style. So I like this little diagram here when we talk about the different aspects of leadership. Now, one person can be all of these. It's knowing when to be. It's like there's some things we like an S1 there. Sometimes we need to be authoritative and directing. In some situations, it's that we put on the hat of directing someone to do something. Sometimes we need to delegate, but those two ones at the bottom aren't that agile, but sometimes they're needed. Delegating is where we throw it off to someone else. You go do it. I don't want to know about it. I'm not going to give you any support, but you go and figure it out. But the two up the top are more in line with an agile leader. So the idea of supporting. So I will support someone in doing it, and then coaching on the other side. High supportive and high directive behavior. Okay, so I'm saying the yellow and the orange, S3 and S2, are more in the agile world. The other two are more in traditional world, but often you can be all those four different hats in the same day. but it's knowing when to apply it and when are you better off supporting someone else doing it. Okay, how are we doing in time? Okay, so mindset. So this idea of, people talk about mindset, it's kind of a well-used term, but trying to understand where your mindset is at. Okay, so obviously, as if culture is made up from other people looking at leaders' behaviors, and those behaviors are tied to a leader's values, so demonstrating humility, a humility to learn, to not think you know everything, is a growth mindset. Um, even the idea of failure is an opportunity to grow. Even the great Google, they've had lots of failed projects. Google Glass, Google Wave, all these things, and they don't fire the guy who came up with that and the guy who spent all the money on it. They say this was a great opportunity to learn, and look, all these other things came out of it, and people appreciate that. So it's this idea of a growth mindset, as opposed to a fixed mindset where failure is a limit of my abilities. I'm either good at something or I just don't do it at all. I'm not. So this idea of trying to assess where you are as a leader, because remember, the team are looking at you. So being able to demonstrate a growth mindset will influence their mindset, the people on the team. And remember, again, a leader isn't just one person on an Agile team. Lots of people provide the service of leadership to the team. Okay, so what mode? So this is an interesting poll I came across where they asked asked employees. Now these were employees in knowledge-based industries. Knowledge-based industries are the ones that come up with innovation. The ones could be well-educated teams, people who the old way of motivating people with clock in cards, clock out cards, fear and greed doesn't work. So these companies, and it's quite a lot, it's over 200,000 workers, and it's quite interesting where you see, money and benefits. It is important. It's hygiene. It's Maslow's base. We need it. But once that is fair, look at all these other things that inspire them. It's quite amazing. Belief in what the company is doing. Peer motivation is quite strong. I like the people I work with. I think they're aligned with who I am. I think they challenge me. I think they're great. I think they know a lot. I have a lot to learn off them. Do good. That's a big thing. I think that's Google's mission statement: do no good. So the idea that it's doing good. Would you work for an organization that makes cigarettes? Would you work for a gambling organization? All these things. So it's interesting. I'm encouraged. Even my boss encourages me. That we're making it, that what I do makes a difference to my organization and makes a difference in the world. And then opportunity to grow, satisfying customers, all the other things in there. So it's quite interesting to understand what motivates people. As an Agile leader, there's certain qualities. We talk about empiricism. If you know what that means, you maybe look it up afterwards. So the idea of, and this is at the heart of doing Agile, but it's also a mindset that we don't know. I worked on projects for years where we did big analysis, we did big requirements documents, and then we went off and built it for a year and a half. And when we came back, it was out of date on day one. Yeah, we essentially took a big guess on what customers wanted, and then we launched it 18 months later. And 50% of the time, we were wrong. It didn't work. Empiricism is where we rapidly release something small. We get feedback. So it's iterative and incremental. So based on that feedback, we develop the next thing. We have lessened the risk on our project. So we need to design our work process around rapidly getting feedback of little pieces of functionality and building on that feedback and being humble enough to say, God, we thought this would work, but now that the customer sees it, it doesn't really work. But hey, look at this other little part here. They really like that. So let's build on that. Okay, so being able to build iteratively and incrementally. Willingness to experiment. So it's quite interesting. We talk a lot about this in the other webinars, but the idea of risk and experimentation and failing and learning, and how and how that matches up with our internal processes and structures. It's a really interesting area. How are some organizations really good at taking calculated risks and innovating? We talk about lean and being resourceful. I know with Unilever, we talk about they actually have a program called Be Resourceful. So this idea of being able to put things together really quickly, little ecosystems of value. And I know one of their Dutch, their Benelux countries put together they only have a limited amount of resources and they want to do things. So they created a little kind of working group with partners, with suppliers, with customers, with the local university, brought them together to rapidly innovate on new ideas. So be resourceful and lean. Lateral thinking, the idea of value orientation. So being able to think outside the box, think outside the blinkers to come up with new ideas of doing things. Collaborative, so cross-functional, very visual, being able to bring people with you, good leadership qualities. Positive can-do attitude, continual discovery. So leader, even if you're quite experienced, the idea that you never know everything. So we keep a growth mindset that we're always willing to learn and find out new things. And what might have worked 2 or 3 years ago, the world could have moved on, and there's a whole new way of doing it. People enabler. So the primary role of an agile leader is to release the potential in people and teams. So we're constantly asking the people in our team, how can I make you better? What can I take away? What can I unblock to help you reach your potential? Conversation over dictation. Now this is something is more. It's about that the agile leader is more. It's more rather than in the old-fashioned way of a broadcast. This is the way I want it done. One way. Do not reply. In conversation, it's more being able to sit with people and have a conversation, see their point of view, empathize, and guide them and coach them. So coaching skills, being able to, and you can look this up, how to hold a conversation on a team. Okay, so it goes into a bit of coaching. Where are we doing the time? Okay, I'm going to keep these for one of the other ones. These are some of the takeaway pieces. If you're interested in OKRs and SMART goals, this is going to be in one of the next. These are more of the doing of the agile leader. So it looks at some of the new ways of how we manage performance on agile teams, how we put in stretch goals, how we separate rewards from objectives of teams. And something else from the one that's more on OKRs, and the next one is talking about building a culture canvas or a team charter. So we go into that in one of the other seminars. So these are takeaway things that you can do with your teams. And just one thing about the culture canvas, if you're going to look it up afterwards, it's more about the process than just creating a document and putting it somewhere. Okay, and whenever I do this with teams, it's really amazing how this brings the team together. Taking your time to do this and get everyone involved and get everyone inputting and everyone signed up to it. And just coming up there to the Q&A time. Perfect. We're at the end and we're right there at 1:15. So we're going to go into the Q&A now. And I like Q&A. So if you have any questions, pop them in here. And let's look at the chat. There's nothing. Okay. And so first question, can you upvote these? Oh yeah, you can upvote these. So this one up the top is from Za, and it says, what personal capabilities should I work on to develop myself as an agile leader? Okay, so personal capabilities. I would say ask for mentorship or coaching or guidance from someone who's more experienced. If you're junior and you're developing, even the best people in the world, Steve Jobs, all these guys, they talk about business coaches. So if often you can be too proud to ask for coaching, but I would certainly ask for coaching. I would look at some of the books. Remember, in Agile, we have two sides to Agile: the doing and the being. So I would split some. The being is more important, but also in the doing, you learn a lot. The Scrum Guide is a great short document that will bring you right up to speed on what Scrum is all about. Um, I would look at emotional intelligence. Develop your emotional intelligence. That is something, I know it sounds all soft and gooey, and whenever I talk to engineers about this, they throw their eyes up and they hate it. It's like putting claws on a chalkboard. Engineers do not like talking about their feelings, but emotional intelligence is quite important, and the really good leaders are quite attuned to who they are, and they're able to read into who other people are. So second question, and I talk about what practical steps should I take as a team leader to develop trust on my team? Okay, so building trust on your team. Well, if this was an open class, I'd ask for suggestions, but that team charter is a great way of building trust on the team. If you go through each step slowly and make sure everyone is contributing. Also, look up the word psychological safety. There's lots of things being written on it recently to build up trust. It's giving people opportunity to take on assignments, to take things on, to lead. It's listening to people's opinions. It's, in Apple, they have a person who's called a stitcher on most teams. And a stitcher is someone who's got good EQ. They're the people who know when, teams are made up of people. People are emotional beings. So it's people who can work on the emotional side of a team, like who's been overstretched, who isn't sharing, who's doing. So these guys are good at sitting down and coaching and helping the team at that emotional level. Okay, another one here is being a product owner and a Scrum Master. Between product owner and Scrum Master roles in Agile teams, are these people the same? Okay, so it goes back to in a generic Agile team, we have someone called a product owner and we have someone called a Scrum Master. I'm sure you might have heard of these terms. And then you have the team, the development team, or the team. It's just called there. Remember, we're cross-functional in the team, so you don't really have titles for these other people on the team. But the product owner and Scrum Master, the product owner is the owner of value. So the team relies on the product owner to come up with what is of highest value for the team to work on. Okay, the product owner is usually someone from the business side who has time to spend with the team. So they are explaining what the value is that the team need to bring. Okay, now they're not the boss of the team. No one's the boss of the team. The team is self-organizing and independent. The Scrum Master is another role. And the Scrum Master is not the boss of the team, is not a project manager. The Scrum Master looks at the health of the team. So they're trying to unblock anything that's blocking team members or the team itself from getting work done. They are coaching individuals on the team. So they're looking overall at the team health. So the product owner is trying to get the team to work on value. The Scrum Master is looking at the health of the team, and they act as a kind of a counterbalance to each other to keep the team on the going fast. Okay, so Scrum Master all about the health of the team and how it works. The product owner laser focused on what is of value. Okay, so those two roles there. Okay, Ivan has a question on, can Agile approaches work for all organizations, and when and where does Agile work best? Okay, so Agile can work in all situations. However, it works best in environments where there is uncertainty, where there is complexity, when we can't afford to guess where the market will be in a year's time, because we need to rapidly innovate and probe and find out what's going on. So however, there are projects, lots of projects, where it's quite clear where we need to be, and it's quite clear it's not going to change that much. And yeah, you can use Agile approaches for that, but you don't get much more value than a traditional write up what exactly you need and then just deliver that. Okay. Any other questions? We've got a couple of minutes left. You want to put anything in the chat? And you want to say hello? Okay. On that, then, what we will do, if there is, we got something in the chat. Okay. Hello. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay, great. So what I want to do is thanks everyone. I hope you've gotten time to have some lunch in between this. I hope there's one or two things that might have been useful in there. My contact details are up there if you want to say hello or you want to talk about anything. We are doing 2 more of these every Wednesday, next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. We look at different aspects of leadership in Agile. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we'll sign off and let people back to their day. Thank you.